All right, so today we're diving into a company that's, well, they're kind of under the radar.
Yeah, not exactly a household name.
Exactly. But they're doing some really interesting stuff, especially when it comes to AI. We're talking about preferred networks, PFN for short, out of Japan.
And they're not just tinkering around the edges. They're aiming for some pretty big changes, particularly in the industrial AI space.
That's a good way to put it. So, for everyone listening, think like fundamental shifts in how industries operate thanks to AI. That's the kind of scale we're talking about here.
Yeah, they're not going after the flashy consumer apps or anything like that. This is about really getting into the nitty-gritty of how industries work and using AI to make them, well, smarter and more efficient.
Okay, so before we get too deep, maybe we should start with the basics. Who are these guys? Where do they come from?
So PFN was founded back in 2014 by three graduates from the University of Tokyo: Toru Nishikawa, Daisuke Okanahara, and Hiroshi Nakagawa.
All right, a pretty solid academic pedigree right there.
Oh, absolutely. And their mission from the start was to develop AI applications that would, actually have a tangible impact on various sectors. We're talking manufacturing, healthcare, transportation, you name it.
So not just theoretical AI research, but really trying to get it out there, working in the real world.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes them so interesting, I think. They've got this great blend of like rigorous academic research combined with a very practical deep tech approach to innovation.
Right, so they're not just publishing papers, they're actually building stuff, working with companies to get these AI solutions implemented.
And not just any companies. We're talking about some of the biggest names in Japanese industry. Toyota, FANUC, Hitachi. These are serious collaborations, not just, surface level partnerships.
Okay, so we've got this image of a company that's deeply embedded in both the research world and the industrial world. So let's get into the specifics now. What are some of the key areas where Preferred Networks is focusing their AI efforts?
Well, one of the areas where they've made a real mark is in deep learning research
Hmm.
and particularly the tools they've developed for it.
Okay, and this is where things might get a little technical, so bear with us, everyone. But trust me, it's important stuff.
Right. So they created this deep learning framework called Chainer. Now, you might not have heard of it, but it was actually pretty revolutionary for its time. It was one of the first frameworks to introduce this concept of define by run, also known as a dynamic computational graph.
All right, break that down for us. Define by run. What does that even mean?
Well, think of it like cooking, right? With the traditional static approach to building neural networks, it's like you have to write out the entire recipe beforehand, every single step, before you even start cooking.
Okay, I'm following so far.
But with define by run, it's like you can add ingredients and adjust the recipe as you go along, tasting and making changes based on how things are turning out.
So more flexibility, more experimentation, more like how a human chef might work.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it did for deep learning research. It gave researchers this amazing ability to experiment with different model architectures and training methods much more intuitively. It was a real game changer, and it paved the way for the rapid progress we've seen in deep learning over the past few years.
So Chainer was this kind of unsung hero pushing the field forward in a big way.
Absolutely. And you know what? This define by run concept, it was so influential that it was later adopted by some of the most popular deep learning frameworks out there, like PyTorch.
Ah, PyTorch. Now that's one a lot of our listeners will recognize.
Exactly. Now, PFN eventually decided to sunset Chainer back in 2019, and they merged its functionality into PyTorch, actually collaborating with Facebook on that. But, Chainer's initial impact on the field was undeniable. It really cemented PFN's reputation as a serious player in the world of AI research.
Okay, so they've got these strong research chops, but how does that translate into, real world applications?
Well, one great example is their work in intelligent manufacturing, particularly their partnership with FAUC. Now, FANU is a global leader in industrial robotics, and PFN has been working closely with them to, well, essentially make robots smarter.
Right. And when we talk about smarter robots, what does that actually look like in practice?
So one of their early collaborations focused on optimizing the operation of robotic arms in real time. Imagine you've got these robots working on a factory floor, and they're constantly generating data from their sensors.
Right, tons of data.
Exactly. And PFN developed these machine learning algorithms that could analyze that data and then use it to make the robots more efficient. So we're talking about things like predicting potential maintenance needs before they cause downtime, or even just making the robots move more efficiently so they can complete tasks faster.
Okay, so not just faster robots, but robots that can learn and adapt as they work.
Exactly. And you can see how that would be hugely valuable in a manufacturing environment where even small improvements in efficiency can make a big difference to the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're not just stopping at robotic arms. Their work with Toyota on intelligent vehicle software is another great example of how they're pushing the boundaries in this field.
Yeah, that's a big one. They're working on software for autonomous driving, but they're also looking at this broader concept of mobility as a service, or MaaS. That's where you integrate all these different transportation services into a single on-demand platform.
So imagine like a seamless system where you can hail a self-driving car, hop on a train, or even rent an e-scooter all through one app.
Exactly. And PFN is working with Toyota to develop the AI that could make all of that possible.
Ambitious stuff. And this is all happening against the backdrop of Japan, which has these incredibly dense, complex urban environments. Not exactly the easiest place to develop self-driving cars, I imagine.
Right, exactly. And that's why their work is so interesting. They're using some really cutting-edge techniques, including end-to-end deep learning, to try to solve these really challenging problems.
Okay, so for those who aren't familiar, what's end-to-end deep learning all about?
Well, it's a pretty different approach to autonomous driving than what a lot of companies are doing. Traditionally, you'd break the problem down into these separate modules.
Yeah.
Perception, where the car has to see and understand its environment, and planning, where it decides what to do, and then control, where it actually executes those actions.
Right, a sort of step-by-step process.
Exactly. But with end-to-end deep learning, you try to train a single massive neural network to handle everything all at once. It's like giving the AI all the raw sensor data, the camera images, the LiDAR readings, everything, and saying, okay, figure out how to drive.
It's a bolder approach, that's for sure, and
But
one that definitely fits with PFN's willingness to tackle these big, challenging problems.
absolutely. And it's not just manufacturing and transportation where they're making an impact. They're also doing some really innovative work in healthcare and bioinformatics.
Right. And I think this is an area where a lot of people are excited to see what AI can do. There's so much potential there to improve diagnoses, develop new treatments, and personalize medicine.
Definitely. And a big focus for PFN in this area is cancer research. They're using their AI expertise to analyze all sorts of data, genomic data, cellular data, you name it, looking for patterns that could help us understand cancer better, diagnose it earlier, and develop more effective treatments.
And this is where AI can really shine, right? Humans just can't process that amount of data effectively.
Exactly. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but the AI can sift through all that data and potentially uncover crucial insights that would be missed otherwise.
And it's not just about analyzing existing data. They're also applying AI to the drug discovery process, right?
That's right. They're using AI to simulate how different molecules interact with each other, which can help them predict how effective a new drug might be.
So instead of spending years and millions of dollars in the lab, they can use AI to potentially identify promising drug candidates much faster and cheaper.
Exactly. And that could have a huge impact on how quickly we can develop new treatments for all sorts of diseases.
Okay, so we've got deep learning research, we've got intelligent manufacturing, we've got healthcare. What else?
Well, we can't forget about robots. PFN is really pushing the boundaries of what robots can do. They're big on this idea of physical AI, which is basically about putting intelligence into robots that can operate in the real world.
Right, so not just robots that can do repetitive tasks in a controlled environment, but robots that can adapt and learn and interact with the world around them.
Exactly. And they've actually developed their own robot platform called Optimus, which is capable of doing things like picking and placing items in a warehouse.
Okay, so your typical warehouse robot, but what makes Optimus special?
What makes Optimus special is that it can learn to recognize and handle new objects, and it can adapt to different warehouse layouts without needing to be reprogrammed every time something changes.
So it's got this built-in flexibility, which is essential for robots that are going to work alongside humans in dynamic environments.
Right. And that adaptability is a key part of what PFN is trying to achieve with physical AI. They want robots that can truly understand and interact with the world around them in a way that's much more human-like.
And they're not just stopping at Optimus, they're also working on autonomous forklifts, which could have a big impact on the logistics industry.
Yeah, think about those massive warehouses where they have to move tons of goods around every day. PFN is developing forklifts that can navigate those spaces autonomously using 3D sensors and deep reinforcement learning.
Deep reinforcement learning, that's another one of those fancy AI terms. What does it mean in this context?
Well, it's basically a way for the AI to learn through trial and error. So the forklift might start out by making a lot of mistakes, but over time, it learns from those mistakes and gets better and better at navigating the warehouse and handling objects.
So it's like a kid learning to ride a bike, falling off a few times, but eventually getting the hang of it.
Exactly. And the cool thing is that these forklifts can even plan their routes in real time based on changing conditions in the warehouse.
So if a new shipment arrives or there's an obstacle in the way, the forklift can adjust its plan on the fly.
Exactly. And that level of flexibility and adaptability is what makes this technology so exciting. It has the potential to make warehouses much more efficient and also much safer for the people who work there.
Now, all of this cutting-edge AI research, it requires a ton of computing power. And that's where PFN's investments in high-performance computing and custom hardware come in.
Right. They realized early on that they couldn't just rely on off-the-shelf hardware if they wanted to push the boundaries of AI research and development. So they invested heavily in building their own supercomputing infrastructure.
So they were like, we need more power. Let's build our own supercomputer.
Pretty much. They started out with MN1, which was based on NVIDIA GPUs,
Hmm.
but then they took things a step further and decided to design their own specialized deep learning processor, the MN Core.
Wow, designing your own chip, that's a pretty serious undertaking. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, deep learning algorithms have some very specific computational requirements. They need massive parallelism, and they can also be very energy intensive. So PFN designed the MN Core to specifically address those needs. They wanted a chip that could handle the heavy lifting of deep learning while also being incredibly energy efficient.
And it sounds like they succeeded. Their MN3 supercomputer, which uses those MN core chips, is consistently ranked among the most energy-efficient supercomputers in the world.
Exactly. It's a testament to their commitment to both innovation and sustainability. They're pushing the boundaries of AI while also being mindful of the environmental impact.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about PFN's areas of focus, their technology, their approach, but let's bring it back down to earth for a second. Can you give us some specific examples of how PFN is actually solving real-world problems through these collaborations they've got going on?
Sure. So let's start with Toyota. We talk about their work on autonomous driving. One of the things that's really interesting there is their focus on integrated learning systems, which are based directly on raw sensor input.
Okay, and how is that different from what other companies are doing?
Well, a lot of autonomous driving systems are based on this idea of breaking the problem down into these separate modules, like we were talking about earlier. But PFN and Toyota are taking a more holistic approach, where they try to train a single AI system to handle everything, from perception to planning to control, all at once.
So instead of having separate algorithms for each step, they're trying to build a single AI that can understand the entire driving process.
Exactly. And that approach is much more similar to how humans learn to drive. We don't break the task down into these separate steps in our heads. We just learn to do it all at once.
So they're trying to mimic the way the human brain works, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. And this integrated learning approach has a lot of potential advantages. For example, it could potentially lead to systems that are more robust and adaptable because they're not relying on these separate modules that can fail independently.
Makes sense. And what about the Toyota e-Palette? How does that fit into all of this?
Ah, the e-Palette. That's Toyota's vision for a versatile electric vehicle platform that can be used for all sorts of things, from ride-hailing to delivery services to mobile shops.
So it's like a blank canvas for the future of transportation.
Exactly. And PFN is working with Toyota to develop the AI that will power those e-pallets, particularly when it comes to autonomous driving.
So it's a real-world test bed for their technology. And it's not just about individual vehicles, right? They're also looking at the bigger picture of how to optimize traffic flow and logistics.
Right. They're thinking about how to use AI to make entire transportation systems more efficient and sustainable. Imagine a city where all the traffic lights are coordinated in real time to minimize congestion, or where delivery routes are optimized to reduce emissions.
That's the kind of future we all want to live in. Okay, so that's Toyota. What about FANUC? We talked earlier about how they're working together to make robots smarter. What are some concrete examples of that?
Well, one really cool example is how they're using AI to enable robots to share knowledge with each other. Imagine a factory floor where you have a bunch of robots working on different tasks. Traditionally, each robot would be programmed to do its own specific job, and that's it.
Right, no communication, no collaboration.
Exactly. But with PFN's technology, the robots can actually learn from each other's experiences. So if one robot figures out a more efficient way to do something, or encounters a new challenge and finds a way to overcome it, that knowledge can be shared with all the other robots on the network.
So it's like a hive mind for robots. That's awesome.
Right, the form of collective intelligence, where the robots are constantly learning and improving as a group. And that has the potential to revolutionize the way factories operate.
I can see how that would lead to some serious efficiency gains. What about their healthcare work? Any specific examples there?
Yeah, their collaboration with the National Cancer Center Japan is a great example of how PFN is applying AI to some of the most pressing healthcare challenges. They're using AI to analyze huge data sets of anonymized health records, radiology scans, genomic data, all sorts of things, with the goal of developing predictive models that can help doctors detect cancer earlier.
So imagine a world where we can catch cancer in its earliest stages when it's much easier to treat. That would be a game changer.
Absolutely. And they're also using AI to help pathologists analyze biopsies more accurately and efficiently. Right now, pathologists have to look at these tissue samples under a microscope, which can be very time-consuming and subjective, but AI can help them identify cancerous cells more quickly and reliably.
That's a great example of how AI can augment human expertise. And then there's their work with NTT on Edge AI, which is all about bringing AI processing power closer to the source of the data.
Right. Edge AI is becoming increasingly important as we rely more and more on connected devices and sensors. Instead of sending all that data back to a central server for processing, which can be slow and inefficient, Edge AI allows us to process it right there on the device itself.
So it's all about real-time decision making.
Exactly. And that's essential for applications like smart cities, where you might have thousands of sensors collecting data on traffic flow, air quality, public safety, and all sorts of other things. By processing that data at the edge, you can make decisions and take actions much faster.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen that Preferred Networks is working on some really cutting-edge AI technology, and they're applying it to a wide range of real-world problems. But what is it that really makes them stand out from the crowd? What makes them special?
I think there are a few key things.
Hmm.
First, their commitment to deep tech excellence is really impressive. They're not just trying to build quick and easy solutions. They're investing in fundamental research. They're developing their own hardware. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Right, they're not just taking existing AI tools and applying them to problems, they're building the tools themselves.
Exactly. And that gives them a level of control and flexibility that a lot of other companies just don't have.
And they're also deeply rooted in Japanese industry, which has a long history of innovation in areas like manufacturing and robotics.
That's right. And that connection to Japanese industry gives them a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities that AI presents. They're not just trying to apply AI in a vacuum. They're thinking about how to use it to solve real-world problems that are specific to the Japanese context.
And it's not just about Japan. Their research and their collaborations have a global reach. They're publishing in top academic journals, they're working with leading research institutions around the world, so they're definitely a force to be reckoned with on the international AI stage.
Absolutely. And I think their approach to problem solving is also quite unique. They seem to start with a real-world problem, and then they figure out how to use AI to solve it. They're not just building technology for technology's sake. They're focused on creating solutions that have a clear and measurable impact.
And that practicality is probably one of the reasons why they've been so successful in their collaborations with these major industrial partners. These companies aren't just interested in theoretical AI research, they want to see results.
Exactly. And PFN has a proven track record of delivering those results. And you can't overlook the importance of leadership and talent. Toru Nishikawa, one of the founders, he's a real visionary in the AI field, and he's built a team of incredibly talented researchers and engineers at PFN.
And it sounds like they've created a really special culture there, one that balances the rigor of academic research with the agility and drive of a startup.
Right. They seem to have found that sweet spot where they can do cutting-edge research and also get things done in the real world.
And we can't forget about their commitment to sustainability, which is increasingly important in the AI field.
Absolutely. The energy consumption of these large AI models is a growing concern, and PFN is taking a leadership role in developing more energy-efficient hardware and algorithms.
So they're thinking not just about the present, but about the future of AI as well. So where do you see Preferred Networks going from here? What's on the horizon for them?
Well, I think they're going to continue to push the boundaries of AI in all the areas we've talked about: manufacturing, transportation, healthcare, robotics. But I think they're also going to play a key role in shaping the future of AI in Japan and potentially globally.
How so?
Well, one of the things they're working on is developing large-scale AI models that are specifically tailored to the Japanese language and culture, Right now, most of the large language models out there are heavily biased towards English and Western culture, which limits their applicability in other parts of the world.
Right. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. So by developing these Japanese-centric models, PFN could help unlock the potential of AI for a whole new range of applications in Japan and potentially beyond.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about developing the technology, it's also about making sure that it's accessible and relevant to different cultures and languages.
Precisely. And they're also exploring new frontiers like multimodal AI,
Yeah.
which is all about combining different types of data like images, text, and sensor data to create even more powerful AI systems.
So imagine an AI that can not only see and hear, but also understand the context of what it's perceiving. That's a whole new level of intelligence.
Right. And that kind of technology could revolutionize fields like robotics, where robots need to be able to interact with the world in a much more sophisticated way.
And they're also looking beyond traditional AI applications, right? They're exploring how AI can be used to accelerate scientific discovery in fields like material science and quantum computing.
Yeah, they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. They're thinking big, and they're not afraid to take on really challenging problems.
And it sounds like they're doing it all with a strong sense of responsibility and a commitment to sustainability.
Definitely. They seem to be acutely aware of the potential impact of AI on society, and they're taking steps to ensure that it's used for good.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. It sounds like Preferred Networks is a company to watch in the years to come.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing some really exciting things, and I think they're going to continue to surprise us with their innovations.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive into Preferred Networks with us. It's been fascinating to learn more about what they're doing and where they're headed.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk about companies that are pushing the boundaries of technology and making a real difference in the world.
And for everyone listening, be sure to tune in tomorrow evening for our next episode, where we'll be diving into another fascinating topic in the world of AI.
Until then,
See y'all then.